Hello, true duelists. YGO Strats here, and welcome back to another episode of You Should Play, a video series where I go over some cards and some decks and why maybe you should play them, or where I talk about cards broadly and then release videos like You Should Play Fluwanderees, as if God won't punish me with eternal damnation for putting that out there onto the internet. Sorry, God, and sorry to anyone who took that advice. My God, to play Fluwanderee, ew! Moving on to today's actual topic, Dark Worlds. Dark Worlds are an old-ass archetype, I believe released in like Elemental Energy in 05 or something absurd. I don't do research, I just speak. These cards are an interesting series of monsters that activate when discarded by card effect. That's the main shtick of these cards, is they want to be discarded from your hand specifically by card effect. These got... were they relevant in 2005? I don't care, or no. So we're gonna move on past that. They got a structure deck in 2012, which brought them some strong relevance, particularly in my friend group, wherein my buddy played this deck with reckless abandon, and we didn't understand rulings. So whenever he activated Trade-In, Grapha would pop things. Those weren't fun times. He also played 3 Skill Drain. Fuck you, Nick. Still, fun as they were, and he also played Pot of Greed. It was the Wild West of dueling at that point in my life, man. Anyways, moving on to what matters, we've gotten a rework of said structure deck, including a rework of Grapha, which is as horrifying as it is good for the deck. You see, this is a deck that's actually pretty damn good when you ignore the, entire metagame at the current moment. Tier Shizu is obviously a deck. Sprite probably will beat this deck more often than not, assuming you're both competent. And Fluwanderees is a sin, so we're not going to talk about the birds anymore. They aren't real anyways. Still. Oh, dude, I just thought about, like, if you activate a Dark World effect and you discard an opponent's tier limit or an opponent's Ishizu card. Oh, yucky. Yeah, okay, it's not good at the very current exact moment I'm releasing this video in the grand scheme, but it's definitely a contender for a future viably competitive deck because a lot of the cards they've gotten are good, and a lot of cards they already had were actually still good. They just needed a bit of oomph added to them. And what better thing to give a deck some oomph than a structure deck? Right, Ice Barriers? God. What a fucking disappointment. Super Trish is cool, though. Still, moving on to these discard fucks. Yeah, they want to be discarded by card effect and not cost, so like I previously mentioned, Trade-In won't trigger their effects, but card destruction will. Again, do not use in a Tier Shizu matchup. So you want to activate cards that discard for card effect, and even better, if the opponent activates cards that discard your cards by card effect, they'll often get a bonus effect as well. So let's just jump into these suckers. We'll start with one I remember most. Funny enough, I guess. That's not funny at all. It's Brow. Yes, Brow will draw a card if discarded by card effect, effectively replacing itself, and also, if discarded by the opponents, will draw 2. Powerful stuff. I know. Beige is not really played anymore since it's effectively been power crept at long last. Praise be, because he doesn't look any uglier than any of the other ones, but I'm going to say he looks ugly, and we're going to say that's the reason why. It's a simple effect. If he's discarded by card effect, he summons himself. It's relevant in 2012, it's now 2022, it's less relevant. Moving on from Beige, of course, there's the tried and true Silver and Gold. Silver and Gold will summon themselves if discarded, and if discarded by the opponent's effect, have some pretty gnarly effects. Gold pops up to 2 cards, and Silva puts 2 cards from the opponent's hand onto the bottom of the deck in any order. So effectively, Silva ruins the hand, getting rid of them in the worst way to make them as least accessible as possible, and Gold is just pew pew, so, I mean, is decent. They were solid at one point in time. They weren't really that solid in the 2012 version, but let me tell you, getting Silva off ain't as hard as it used to be in 2022. Is that a sex joke? I don't know. So we're going to move on from it. There's a few other cards that were released that I don't really care about, so we're just going to jump into the more relevant stuff that I remember. Snow came out in the structure deck, which was a solid card acting as a Dark World Stratos of sorts, able to search any Dark World card when discarded, and it also had the bonus effect that if it was discarded by an opponent's card effect, it could special summon an opponent's monster from their graveyard. But it wasn't worded that simply, it was worded like an abomination of text. It was so confusing to read, and I don't understand why. And also, again, to show you how horrendously wrong my dueling experience was in 2012, that same guy who was popping cards with Trade-In and Grapha would summon 2 copies of Snow off of Rescue Rabbit. He had a really strong Dark World deck, but it was not because it was a good deck. That's all I'm gonna say. Love you, Nick. Anyways, Snow searched out stuff. Snow searched out stuff, and what better to search out than Grapha? Grapha was the boss monster and the epitome of Yu-Gi-Oh! Having dragon in the name, visibly looking like a dragon, and not being a dragon. 2700 attack. If discarded by card effect, it could pop a card on the field, and if it got the glorious opponent's effect, it would also look at one random card from their hand, and if it was a monster, special summon it. So you'd pop something of theirs, take one of their monsters, and that's solid enough by itself. But wait, there's more, because Grapha could also summon itself from the graveyard by returning a face-up Dark World to your hand. So by returning one of your Dark World monsters to your hand, you get a big 27 beater, and hey, look at that, you have more things to discard in the future to get more glorious effects. It was a solid engine in its time, and it's still solid to this day. Grapha is also, you know, great to use under skill drain because most of this deck is, if you want to play it that way, but I don't want you to do that. Please do not do that. Please be good people. Try that one on for size. The last monster I remember them getting in their new wave circa 2012 was Ceruli, who wasn't all that good to play at the time, if I'm not mistaken. This card would summon itself to the opponent's field when it was discarded by card effect and then make you discard, so it would proc your bonus effects, but I don't know, maybe it was good at its time, maybe it was decent back then, but again, my friend was using a Rescue Rabbit to get out 2 snows, so like, he didn't need it. And so I didn't see it too much, but it might have been decent. I didn't see it a lot in topping lists. That's the only reason I say it was meh. And now it's a lot better because there's even more new stuff to get even more things going on. For their newest wave of support in the monster category, Genta searches out their phenomenally good field spell by discarding itself, and if it's banished, it'll summon itself. So it's literally just synergy with the field spell. It's absolutely insane. It's great. And it's a 3-of, and it's it feels like it was designed by a Redditor trying to make Dark World relevant. And it almost did, kinda. Anyways, beyond just Genta, we also got Rainbow Overlord something something something. I ordered my decks and they didn't come in yet. I have a mail problem. Rainbow Big Overlord Cool Man Punchdown Now guy, whose name I completely forgot, is the new, not cover card, but pretty damn good boss monster released in our newest wave of support. This card is essentially Rhoda's copy 4, 5, and 6 for Grapha, adding a level 5 or higher Dark World monster when discarded. And if it's discarded by the opponent's card effect, it can special summon a level 4 or lower Dark World monster from your deck or graveyard. So, easy swarming. And it has a similar effect that Grapha has, able to summon itself from the graveyard by bouncing a Dark World monster. It just has to be a level 7 or lower one so that you can't do endless graphic shenanigans, which is probably good, but probably also hinders the deck a little bit. Let's be for realious here. And lastly, the latest and greatest addition to the deck, Big Purple Dragon Centaur Abomination Grapha, whose name I didn't forget, and this is definitely it. This card requires a Dark World Grapha and any dark monster, meaning it's pretty damn splashable. And its effect is essentially a negate without a negate. If the opponent activates a monster effect or the effect of a normal spell or normal trap card, you can make that effect become you discard a card. So they'll activate, I don't know, Tour Guide, Upstart, and then you chain Big over here, and now Upstart will make you discard a card, proccing not just your Dark World effect, but their bonus effect, which is great. Not only is that essentially a negate, you're changing the effect, you're not letting them get the one they want, but it also helps you to plus, which is just amazing. And because of course it has to be, 3200 attack on this big dingus, and just for icing on the cake, if it is destroyed or leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can summon a banished Grapha or a Grapha from your grave, and then each player will discard a card. By effect. Great card. fantastic card. I like it. It has a boss monster to go into that has some meaning beyond just skill drain. What the fuck, Nick? Why did you make me deal with that? Still, that's not all they've got. They're not just monsters, they got some spell and traps too. Gateway.
Hey there, guys. It's me. I'm editing now, and I realized I kept calling Gates of the Dark World Gateway because I played Six Samurai, and also Gateway to Dark World is another card I was getting this confused with. So I'm going to keep talking and saying Gateway, but that's just because I have the big dumb. I got a bit of brain rot. Haha, whoops. But know that I'm only talking about the field spell here, because Gateway to Dark World is as stupid and bad as its name is. Why is it just Gateway to Dark? Why doesn't it say the? Anyway, back to the video, thanks.
It is such a phenomenal card that it's simple but effective as hell. You banish a fiend from your graveyard, you discard a card, and you draw a card. It cycles your deck a little bit. Genta will summon itself if you inevitably, used Genta to get this into your hand in the first place, giving you a body to bounce with Rainbow or Grapha. And of course, 300 attack bonus, just for that little oomph, just to make Grapha a 3k beater, or your new fusion boss monster 35. This is nothing to scoff at. It's also not a hard once per turn, meaning you can just kind of play gates over gates and just get the gateway going, or whatever it is people say when playing Six Samurai. But we also have a plethora of new, very good cards released in our newest structure deck as well. Dark World Archives has two effects. One is simple enough to discard a Dark World monster, and then have all your Dark World monsters gain attack equal to the discarded monster's level times 100, which is cute and irrelevant and mostly just to discard something to proc one of your effects. But even better, if you discard a Dark World monster by a card effect, it will allow you to discard one card and then draw two more. So it effectively just helps you turbo draw and trigger even more of your effects. And as I understand it, triggers itself. So yeah, pretty damn good. Pretty reliable. Dark World Puppetry is DD Crow on crack. Oh, no, sorry, that's Bestials. Dark World Puppetry is like Super DD Crow. It targets up to 3 cards in either player's graveyard and banishes them, and then discards a fiend. Reliable. It also can be banished from your graveyard to target a fiend that is banished and add it back to your hand, helping you to get back some of your things that maybe weren't Genta that you banished to activate Gateway. Pretty reliable. But I think the best new card that the deck got in the newest structure deck is Dark World Ascension. It is a quick play fusion spell that allows you to fusion summon using monsters from your field or graveyard by banishing them to summon any fiend fusion type monster, or if you are summoning a Dark World fusion specifically, allows you to discard the fusion material instead, which will be for a card effect and will proc your effects, and it's absolutely insane, allowing you to discard on the opponent's turn to summon out a 3200 pseudo negate. It's fantastic. It is during the main phase only because Konami didn't want the deck to be too good, I guess, but it's still a phenomenal card and one that I very much appreciate having been given. And because they had to make it even better, it can be added from the graveyard back to your hand by discarding any Dark World monster. So you can just keep doing it. You can play more than one of that fusion and get it out pretty reliably. Each effect has a once per turn, but it's also a quick play, so yeah, okay, sure. You can give them good cards. That's fine. That's fine. The last new card they got that I guess I'll mention is the Counter Trap, which allows you to negate and destroy a monster that was normal or special summoned and then discard a fiend. And it has the Balinx effect that if a Dark World monster or monsters you control will be destroyed, you can banish it from your grave instead. This is technically not bad, but you have to wonder if it's ever at any point worth playing over just Solemn Judgment, which can not only stop a normal or special summon in most circumstances, but also any spell or any trap. So if you're playing it, is there really a reason to play it over Judgment? Technically, yeah, the Balinx effect, but you can probably do without it. But it is decent enough if you're playing on a more casual and not try-hard level, or whatever it is you want to call playing competitively. And so that's, I guess, worth mentioning. Other honorable mentions include Card Destruction, which discards each player's entire hand, which will proc all your effects. It is pretty good. And in the notes section I had when making the loose joke lineup for this video, and it just says LMFAO tier matchup. Yeah, Don't use that in the tier limit matchup. That's what we call a bad time. Still, there's also Drag Down to the Grave. Drag Down by the Grave? I can't remember exactly. It allows each player to look at each other's hand and then discard one, and then you'll both draw one. This is mainly done to look for hand traps and rip them out specifically, and more ideally get down to a point where they have to discard one of your Dark World monsters and you get a plus. So, cool. I fucking hate this card. I hated every time Nick would use it to disrespect the sanctity of my hand and rip a card out of it. Very rude. Don't play it against me. When I played Moaling Glacia and Mermail, very based and intelligent and correct. When you got rid of my hand, bad player. No doing that. That's the rules. Then there was what? There was 2 floodgates. Well, 1 floodgate and 1 DD Crow plus. Smog was DD Crow that also discarded a Fiend, which was really annoying in some older matchups. And then there was Brainwashing. And Brainwashing, you had to have 3 cards in your hand and a Dark World on field. And then if the opponent activated a monster effect, you could bounce that Dark World monster, and then their monster effect became that they make you discard a card, which wasn't terrible, but it also wasn't phenomenal. I don't know. It was like... It existed. Didn't make the deck any more relevant than it had been at the time, but it did exist. So, something to think about. And that covers up the essentials of what make up Dark World specific. They're an interesting series of cards, what with the rainbow theming going on, or more accurately color, but they do have a card called Rainbow. 2 of them, in fact. There's an old version I didn't talk about because it sucks. This means, of course, that they're one of the few decks privileged enough to say that if you don't play them and support them, you're homophobic. That's not my opinion. That's just the reality of Biden's America. Still, that lame joke out of the way, they have received some incidental support over the years, namely with Dangers. You see, Dangers were a series of monsters designed by Konami so that they would synergize well with Dark World into an FTK in 2018, so that they might have Jesse Cotton FTK a fucking child on stream. And what is still one of the funniest things to happen in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! In my opinion. And I'm never gonna get tired of that fact. And I don't believe Jesse regrets it at all. I believe the exact quote from Jesse in regards to that was, "Fuck them kids." It's not true, but I'm just gonna say it. Still, the Dangers work beautifully with the Dark World monsters, discarding for card effect and having effects when discarded. This means all your cards have an easy natural synergy, and they give you access to even more pops and even more summons and even more spam. Plus, since they're all dark, they work perfectly with the new Super Centaur Grapha abomination. Why is it a fucking centaur? I can't stress to you enough how much I hate that. Maybe it just has 4 arms. Fuck it, Machamp Grapha. Still, the dark attribute and the pseudo-genericness of Machamp Grapha really are something to behold, and it just makes for super duper fucking easy synergy. Not to mention the fact that this is a structure deck, meaning it is the easiest possible thing for you to go pick up 3 of and play to some level of competency. With the reprints of the Danger cards, the reprints of Skill Drain if you want to be a morally abhorrent person when playing against your opponent, and just access to really everything the deck needs right in that deck, you've got yourself a solid strategy to pick up on the cheap. Were it not for the current meta, I do believe this would be a viable contender, almost comparable to the Monarch deck of 2016. 3 of it makes for a competent meta strategy, or the Dinosaur deck in 2017. Or the exact opposite of the Ancient Gear structure deck from 2017. So why should you play Dark World? It's simple. Number 1, this thing is cheap. 3 copies of the structure deck will get you pretty much everything you need. Not to mention access to a playset of Skill Drain and the Danger package, or a good chunk of it. This will be good for any future decks you might want to build, and maybe you can just hoard some copies of Skill Drain so that no one else has to deal with it. And that makes you a hero. I also believe this will be a viable meta contender in months or formats to come. Maybe not right now against tier limits, but in the future this is definitely the makings for a strong deck. Plus, since it's Dark World, it's got a variety of means to play it. You can play it as a build-a-board combo shenanigans deck, turboing out Machamp Grapha, because I'm not calling it a Centaur anymore, or you can play more arrogantly, and by arrogantly I mean ignorantly, with Skill Drain and Floodgates and Soul Drain and Fun Drain. All the means to play it. If you're someone who's looking to try out different strategies for the same deck, or if you really want a smoke screen to keep your opponents, on their toes, siding from the control and stun variant into the combo variant between games so that they don't know, do they want to board in a bunch of feather dusters to get rid of your floodgates, or are you building wombo combo? And it might be a pretty decent choice in that regard. And so that's about all I've got. I want to shout out today's sponsor, the LIFD display. Once again, supporting the channel, love to see it. This is an awesome little display for you to put up your favorite card, or for you to frame all the different copies of Skill Drain that you're preventing the world from playing. Again, that makes you a hero. And a wall of skill drains forever sealed in the magnets. That's nice. That's an aesthetic to your lair, friend, and one I can support. As always, you can use YGOstrats15 or click the link in the description for 15% off your order to help out the channel and get an awesome new way to display your favorite cards. Thank you, as always, for watching. Subscribe if you like the video. Unsubscribe if you didn't like the video. Click like if you liked the video. And if you click dislike, no one will know other than me, so don't do that. As always, I am not Thomas Jefferson. My name's Yug Man himself, or Mr. Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to YGO Strats for this week's update, and this is the wrong outro. Got every fucking notification at once. I love it. Woo, there you are.